preventing e-readers, ISIN, one way of doom. The goddess next force left her stuff on the catwalk to take on a runway of words in this action-packed element ISIS exclusive feature. Pre-order your copy of ISIS Runway of Doom at Amazon.com and online bookstores everywhere.
Better get the cool slow, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue.
I was on X on Monday when YouTuber Comical Opinions made a post about Kamala Kahn, Ms. Marvel. And he wondered why Marvel basically hasn't been using the Kamala Kahn character. And the main reason why no one is using Kamala Kahn, Ms. Marvel anymore is because Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel is what I call a creatively totaled character. Now, as a guy who has been writing for the last 30 years, one of the things you don't want to do is continue pushing a creatively totaled character. Now, what is a creatively totaled character? Well, a creatively totaled character is the same thing as a car that's a total loss. Usually, in the case of a car that's been in a wreck, is the insurance company will basically estimate how much it will take to fix that car, and if the cost of fixing that car is more than the car is worth as related to the Kelley Blue Book, basically they will deem the car to be a total loss and look to pay the owner the value of the car as related to the Kelley Blue Book, rather than look to go out here and pay for the repairs on that car, because it's just going to cost more than the car is actually worth. And when it comes down to intellectual properties like comic book characters and movie and TV characters, they too can become creatively totaled, where it basically costs more in time and money than it's worth to try to continue to work with that character. And once a character becomes a total loss for the business, what happens is that the business basically goes out here and quietly puts that character on a shelf, and puts that character on a shelf as an IP, because there's no way for them to redeem any sort of value by creating any sort of product with that character. And that's basically what happened to the Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel character. The Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel character basically was a total loss for Marvel as related to its all different Marvel plans, due to the way the character was created. Now, the Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel character basically was an avatar for Sana Amanat, who was working at Marvel at the time, and was a representation of her. And as a representation of her and how she wanted to be a part of Marvel, the character did not have any sort of internal factors that made her appealing, such as having her own distinct personality, having her own distinct voice, and having her own distinct story and mission. No, because she didn't have those underpinnings that would make her an interesting addition to the Marvel Universe, she wasn't an asset to the Marvel catalog. And even though Marvel tried about 9 to 10 times with 9 to 10 different series to get Kamala Khan to become a popular Pakistani Muslim superhero, she just did not get over. And as she did not get over with readers who basically tired of this derivative of Captain Marvel, who was formerly Ms. Marvel, what happened was the Kamala Khan character became irreparably damaged. And as she became irreparably damaged over the course of 9 series, eventually there was a decision to make her into a mutant and fold her into the X-Men for part of Marvel and the mutant universe. But even that couldn't save the character. No, it couldn't save the character, because the character had basically started out straight from its initial creation and had damage from initial creation, because the structures were not there to make a compelling character. Because when you're creating characters, you have to basically focus on certain things in order to make a character compelling. So One of the things that many writers like myself, what we do when we want to make a compelling character is we focus on things like their personality, their voice, and their overall direction. And we have a mission for the character. We have a mission where the character has a goal that they want to do, and that sets up the core of their series. And as we set up the core of their mission, we then focus on things not only like their personality and voice, but we focus on their character flaws. And this is the thing that creates the core conflict for their story. For example, I created a book called Spellbound in the Spinsterella series that was the foundation for the Matilda Crowley character. Now, the Matilda Crowley character basically was a biracial woman who went into the goth subculture, but the core reason why she went into the goth subculture was, one, she was being bullied by other black girls as related to her race and identity. Two, she basically went into the goth subculture also because she was a very shy person and she wanted to find her voice and speak to the world about who she was and let people know who she was. And three, she basically made a promise to her brother after a tragic incident at a house party that she would still look to go out here and live her own life even after he was going to go away to college. And all of these were the things that are the underpinnings of the Matilda Crowley character and her mission to become her own person as she entered the goth subculture. Again, when you create characters, there has to be depth and dimension as related to those characters that you can basically work with. And if there's nothing there for you to work with, you're basically going to wind up in a situation where you create a character like Kamala Kahn, where there's nothing of substance to work with. And if there's nothing of substance to work with, that character isn't going to really reach or connect with the reader. It's not going to connect with the reader at all. And as a result, what you're going to do is create what I call a creatively totaled character, where the character is a total loss for the company in terms of being an IP for the company, because you can't turn a character into an asset if the readers don't relate to that character or relate to that character's experience. And if they don't relate to that character or their experience, they can't relate to their story. And if they can't relate to their story, then you're not going to be able to create any sort of book or any other adapted media like TV shows or movies with that character and have that character be appealing to anyone. No, when you have a character, you have to have something there of substance that the reader can connect with. And if there's nothing there for the reader to connect with, that character is a total loss. And total losses just don't come as related to a character having a bad foundation. It can also come from a bad storyline, like in the case of Iron Man. As related to the character, he was one of the most popular characters in the MCU. However, in the comics, the Iron Man character can be considered to be creatively totaled because they have basically been rebooting this character ever since about 1998. And over the last 30 years, no one has been able to get the Iron Man character to fly the way David Michelini, John Romita Jr., and Bob Layton were able to do, or the team of Len Kamenetsky or Kevin Hopgood could do. Basically, when it comes down to creators, they really don't know how to work with the Tony Stark character to make him interesting, and as a result, the character is creatively totaled because basically it's costing Marvel more than it's worth in time and resources. You've basically been through just about as many reboots as Kamala Kahn, and because you've been through about as many reboots, the character basically his reputation suffers over and over again, and that makes it where it's harder to repair that character, because with each passing series that fails, what happens is people don't trust any book that features this character on it. Many people just don't trust anything that features this character, and they are averse to buying any series where this character's name is associated. So that's another aspect of a creatively totaled character. A creatively totaled character, again, is one that's a total loss, and you're basically spending good money after bad, pushing this character as an IP, and sadly this character isn't getting over with the audience, and as a result of this character not getting over with the audience, you're basically losing money with every turn. And again, it's just like that car that basically was a wreck. It basically has more, it costs more to repair than the car is worth, so it's not worth the time of that person who owns that car to repair that car, because if the damage is that bad, and basically it doesn't take much to total a car these days. I mean, in the case of, I was watching a Car Wizard video, he talked about how a simple thing on a Ford 500, like a transmission, basically totaled that car out because the transmission cost more than the car is worth, and you could basically find a used Ford 500 in perfect condition for the same price as it would cost to replace the transmission. And I also remember watching a couple of other videos about totaled cars. I mean, totaled cars, again, if it only cost a couple of bucks to get that car back in shape, yeah, you can spend that money to fix it. But if that car costs more in parts and labor to repair than it's actually worth, then it's just better to let that car go, collect the insurance money, go get yourself another used example in possibly better condition. And when it comes down to creatively totaled characters, sometimes you just basically have to move on and basically just put this character on the shelf and move on to more profitable ventures. That's what a lot of creators have to do in publishing all the time, because sometimes it not only happens as related to, again, poorly structured and created characters like Kamala Kahn, it also happens when characters get too old, like in the case of certain IPs. In the case of certain IPs, basically the character's value has depreciated as related to it being an asset for the company, and as the value has depreciated to it being an asset to the company, you can't really tell stories about this character because they are a product of their time. And if a character is a product of their time, you really can't tell many good stories about that character. So as a result, what many companies do is basically say, hey, we're going to retire this character. Yeah, we own this character, but there's no audience there, so we're going to just go out here and declare this character a total loss. Yeah, we'll keep the asset around as related to reprints, but we're not making any sort of new material because there's no audience for the new material, but there is an audience for the older material. So that's another way a character becomes creatively totaled, and that happened to characters like Brenda Starr Reporter and Little Orphan Annie. They basically got totaled out because there was nobody really interested in, one, going out here and printing their stories in the newspapers anymore. Two, basically creators could not come up with any new stories because they were a product of their time. So Little Orphan Annie basically went, and Brenda Starr, they stopped producing their comics. And the same thing happens again with characters. Again, a character can become creatively totaled for a variety of reasons. They can become creatively totaled and a total loss, and becoming a total loss to a business because they just cannot make any more sales as related to anything was related to IPs, as related to that character, and that's where the intellectual property winds up losing its value. Now, when it comes down to, again, intellectual properties, you can possibly salvage a good IP with a good creator at the helm. You may be able to salvage or even revive an older IP, but when a character becomes creatively totaled due to years of damage or just plain old age, in many cases, the only thing a business can do, and in the case of a creatively totaled character, is just basically, again, take the loss and then move on to more viable properties. That's one of the things that you have to do in this business, and publishers do it all the time. Every year, they mine for IPs, and if the book sells, the character will be allowed to continue on. But if the book doesn't sell, a lot of IPs wind up, again, creatively total losses, where in some cases, again, it gets so bad that they just give the rights back to the original creator because they don't want to keep taking the loss. And the whole thing is that when you have a creative, totally totaled character, sometimes you just have to take the L on that character in order to move on to a different property. And that sadly was happened in the case of Kamala Kahn. Basically, Marvel pushed this character and pushed and pushed and pushed this character, but sadly the character never got over with audiences, never connected with the audience, and basically once the character got totaled, basically they realized it was a total loss, and once they realized it was a total loss, that's when they basically stopped investing any more money into Kamala Kahn and basically called it a day. And after they called it a day, they basically said, we're going to move on to other things. And that's what publishers do all the time. In the case of creatively totaled characters, that's why you might see a character dying, because basically they want to give the rights back to the creator, or that character may fade into obscurity because they basically don't want anything to do with this character, because this character isn't one that has gotten over as related to things, or this character may be relegated to background and cameo appearances because they realize that there's nothing else they can do. A creatively totaled character is one where they basically see no more viability for that character, and as they see no more viability for that character, they just look to mitigate their losses as related to that character and their stories. Now, if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic on Lulu.com in paperback, and you can also get a digital version on Kindle and Google Play. And my other comic, Esteem No Good Deed, is available on Kindle for just 99 cents, and you can also find that Esteem's comic story in the back of the Esteem series book, Esteem Blast from the Past. And if you want to check out the books of the SJS Direct Universe, you can find the books in the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella series, which feature Matilda Crowley. You can find all those books, and my vampire novel, Eternal Night, my black sorority novel, The Thetas. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online bookstores like Drafted Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about writing, creativity, or comic books, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App to help me stay on the air. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.